So these are the tools you're going to want to turn on in Word in order to make the best use of our template. So the first thing we're going to turn on is our paragraph markings. That's this funny looking backwards P. We're going to turn this on and it is going to show us where our hard returns are. That's a hard return is when you just hit enter. That's represented by that funny looking backwards P. Where our soft returns are. A soft return is where you hold shift and hit enter. And that is these bendy arrows here. A soft return tells Word that the things on the different lines are actually the same item. You just want them to be on different lines. Whereas the hard return tells Word that the two different lines are two different things. It also tells us where our headings are. So this little black square over here in the margin, when we look at that, we can see that there is a paragraph level heading style applied to that line. And then when we come here, we can see that little triangle, which is the thing we can click to collapse all of the subheading levels into that higher level. These do not show up when it's printed. Then we can also see where our breaks are, our page breaks right here, a page break that just moves us to the next page. It doesn't have anything to do with settings or page numbers or anything like that. It's simply all content is being moved to the next page now. There's another page break. And it will tell us where our section breaks are. Now, when you have a blank page in the middle of your manuscript, that's because a page break or a section break has gotten at the top of a new page, and that's the thing that needs to get deleted or moved in order to get rid of that blank page. It will also show us where our tabs are. These little arrows are places where the tab button has been hit, and we can see where those are. So the paragraph markings are incredibly important when we're moving, because we can also see where our blank lines are. This is just a blank line hanging out there, and in our case, we want it there because we want that blank line to be styled top margin. And we can tell that it is a blank line styled top margin. And then if there are any other blank lines in the middle, we can see where they are, because usually that's kind of what's going on. If our heading spaces are too large, there might be an invisible blank line hanging out there. The next tool we want to turn on is our ruler. So we're going to find our ruler here under View, and we're going to click our ruler on. And the ruler is very useful because it shows us where our margins are. So we can see this grayed out area is our margins, and we can keep our eye on them just in case they flip to an incorrect size. And we can also use the ruler to measure, because we don't want any headings or subheadings extending past 5 inches. So we can kind of come up here and see this one is a little over 2 inches, so it's perfectly fine. It's great. The ruler is also incredibly useful because images don't automatically shrink themselves to fit within your margins. And tables are particularly notorious for this as well. You'll put a table in and it'll be extending into the margins, and it can be really hard to see if you don't have the ruler turned on. So we can see that this is exactly against the margin, and that's really helpful. Another way that the ruler is useful is that sometimes you might end up with tabs on a line that's supposed to be centered. So you're looking at this line. This is a subheading. It is supposed to be centered. You think it is centered because the center button is pushed, but it is not centered. And the reason it's not centered is because we've got this tab up here, this first line indent. So if we grab that, pull that to the margin, it makes it centered now, and that is a really easy thing to see. You can also keep an eye and make sure that your tabs, your top indent is the same size. Sometimes we'll see people who have indents that are this size and others that are this size, but you can kind of measure where they are if you have your ruler up and then easily drag them around. The next tool we're going to talk about is our navigation pane. So we can open this up again under view, right here, navigation pane. This is going to show us everything that has been styled a heading in the manuscript. And you can see which level of heading it is based on how far it is indented from the left. So you can see them all tucked there underneath each other. You can collapse them into each other if you don't want to look at the entire list. You can click to one of the headings in here and it will take you to that in your paper, which is really useful if your manuscript gets pretty long or rather than having to scroll. We can drag it open and look at the entire subheadings pulled out if they're very long, like this figure caption, which is styled as a heading style. And you can look at them all and you can see and make sure whether or not they are consistently capitalized, which is an issue. And then if you can see one that is not consistently capitalized, you can just click to it and fix it right there. You can also keep track of the numbering. Sometimes when you're using local numbering and you can get lost in the numbers, you can miscount. But when you open up your navigation pane, you can see all of them all down in a row and see if they are correctly numbered. Make sure that they are all numbered correctly. And then you can just make sure that nothing is hanging out, thinking that it is a heading when it shouldn't be a heading. Sometimes that happens. Pull this back over. And then the last tool I want to show you is the styles pane. Now I've got a pretty large monitor right now, so we can see a big chunk of the styles pane kind of right here. And if I were to click this little down arrow, it'll open up, this whole pane. But you can also pop it out and you can drag this over here or put it back. And with the styles pane out, you can see all of the styles. A lot of these are not used in the template, but you can see where they all are. You can easily see which one. I can see my cursor is right here. It's 4th level. If I were to click here, it'd move it up to the 2nd level. I can see a whole big list of all the styles that I want to use in my manuscript based on the template. And if I click this little down arrow, I get the option to update subheadings to match selection or to modify. Hopefully you shouldn't be using these options very often. That would mostly be if you are going to change the font or the alignment, if you're going to move from left aligned to block aligned, or you would also use that option if you're not liking the look of the subheading scheme. For instance, here is our 1st level subheading, but let's say that you didn't want the underline on the 1st level subheading, so you would take the underline off and then come here to 1st level subheads, click that, update 1st level subheads to match selection, and now they are all missing that underline. Of course, if you do that, then you have to move the 2nd level subheading down a level. So then this one would then become the one that looks like the 3rd level subheading. So we're going to take the bold off and put the underline on and then update this, so on and so forth. But that should really be the only time you're using those options. And those are the tools that you need to use our template.